He refused to notice her for an entire year until another man made her laugh. Maybe you know that kind of pain. The kind where you show up early, work harder than everyone else, love quietly, and still feel like a shadow in someone else's world. Emma Carter knew it well. Every morning, she sat outside Jackson Vale's office in a glass tower above New Orleans, arranging the life of a man powerful enough to silence politicians, frighten criminals, and make an entire room hold its breath. To him, she was just the girl behind the desk. Until Noah Brooks handed her coffee, made her smile, and awakened something dangerous in Jackson's chest. The last thing Emma heard before she left Jackson Vale's office was the quiet sound of his breathing behind her, controlled, and even as if he had not just opened a door, neither of them knew how to close. "Because now I can't stop looking." The words followed her back to her desk. They sat beside her coffee. They slipped between the lines of every email she tried to answer. They moved with her hands as she sorted contracts, confirmed appointments, and adjusted the schedule of a man who had spent a year walking past her like she was part of the furniture. By 10 that morning, the executive floor had returned to its usual rhythm. Phones rang in low tones. Printers sighed from glass rooms. Lawyers passed with folders tucked against their chests. Assistants moved quickly in shoes that sounded too expensive against the marble. Outside the tall windows, New Orleans glowed under a damp silver sky, the Mississippi sliding brown and slow beyond the district towers. Everything looked normal. Nothing felt normal. Emma Carter kept her shoulders straight and her face calm, because that was what she knew how to do. She had been trained by life to leave no mess behind. Not tears, not anger, not wanting. Especially not wanting. She opened Jackson's noon briefing and stared at a paragraph about riverfront permits without reading a word. Across from her, Jackson's office door remained closed. He did not call her back in. He did not send Cole out with a message. He did not step into the hall and look at her again. That should have made it easier. It didn't. It made her wonder whether she had imagined it. Whether a woman could want something so badly that her own heart built a moment out of silence and hunger. Maybe Jackson Vale had not sounded shaken. Maybe he had only been irritated. Maybe the first real look he had ever given her was not desire at all, but possession of a thing he had only noticed because someone else had reached for it. That thought hurt enough to make her sit still. Emma lowered her eyes to the contract in front of her and forced herself to work. Her mother used to say work was the cleanest answer to anything. Bills did not care if you were sad. Rent did not wait for your heart to mend. Laundry did not fold itself because you had spent the night wondering why someone did not love you back. So Emma worked. She replied to legal. She moved a call with a council liaison. She corrected a board packet that had the wrong date on 2 pages. She ordered black coffee for Jackson and lemon tea for a visiting investor who always pretended he did not remember asking for it. She was good at being useful. Useful had kept her alive. Useful had gotten her out of her mother's cramped house in Baton Rouge, where the walls were thin and every room belonged to someone louder. Her older brother Caleb had filled the place with his temper, his music, his friends, his dreams, his failures. Her mother had filled it with exhaustion. She worked front desk at a clinic during the day and cleaned offices 3 nights a week, coming home with swollen feet and eyes that seemed to look through Emma even when they were trying not to. Emma learned young that asking for less made people sigh less. She learned to make her own breakfast before school. Learned to patch her uniform blouse when the seam split. Learned not to mention field trips that cost money. Learned that quiet girls were praised for being easy, even when easy was just another word for lonely. By the time she turned 17, she could read a room before entering it. She knew when to speak, when to vanish, when to make coffee, when to pretend she did not hear a man raise his voice in the next room. She did not think of it as fear back then. She thought of it as manners. New Orleans was supposed to change that. She came to the city at 21 with 1 suitcase, $280, and a temporary job at a shipping office near the river. She fell in love with the city before she trusted it. The air smelled like rain, iron, old brick-fried dough, and secrets. Jazz spilled from doorways after dark. Churches stood beside bars. Garden gates hid mansions with balconies wrapped in green vines. The river moved through everything, patient and heavy, carrying barges, money rumors, and bodies people only talked about after midnight. Emma built her life one careful piece at a time. A studio apartment in mid-city above a bakery, a second-hand table, a chipped blue mug, a winter coat bought on clearance even though Louisiana rarely asked for one, a tiny basil plant on her kitchen window, a savings account she checked every Friday with the devotion some people gave to prayer. Then came Vale Harbor Group. At first she was hired as a temporary administrative assistant for the acquisitions department. 3 weeks later she caught an error in a land transfer packet that would have cost the company 6 figures and embarrassed a vice president who did not forgive embarrassment easily. Instead of thanking her, he snapped that she should have flagged it sooner. Emma apologized. The next morning an offer letter appeared in her inbox. Executive assistant to Jackson Vale. No interview. No explanation. Just the job, the salary, the floor, the warning in every face when she told people where she was going. Top floor. Private office. Mr. Vale. People said his name carefully. That should have been her first sign. Jackson Vale was not famous in the way actors were famous or politicians wanted to be famous. He was the kind of man adults lowered their voices around. On paper, he was the chief executive officer of Vale Harbor Group, a clean name attached to shipping freight security, real estate development, and private port infrastructure. He owned warehouses along the Mississippi contracts, tied to river traffic land near old docks, and enough political goodwill to make entire committees return his calls. Off paper, he was something else. Emma heard the pieces the way quiet women always heard things. In elevators, in break rooms, in the pause after someone said too much. His father, Victor Vale, had not built the family fortune with kindness. He had built it with dock leases, private security cash favors, frightened witnesses, and the old understanding that New Orleans did not run on laws alone. When Victor died, men expected Jackson to either soften the empire or lose it. He did neither. He made it cleaner, sharper, harder to touch. The legitimate world called him disciplined. The underground called him dangerous. Emma called him Mr. Vale and tried not to look too long when he walked past her desk. That worked for 5 months. Then came the rainstorm. The lobby had been chaos that afternoon. A charity luncheon upstairs had ended at the same time a city planning delegation arrived for a private meeting. Reporters crowded near the revolving door's umbrellas, dripping onto polished stone. Security was trying to separate invited guests from people who only looked invited. Someone had knocked over a floral arrangement. Someone else was shouting about parking. Emma had gone downstairs with corrected name cards pressed to her chest. That was when she saw the little girl. She was maybe 6, standing near a marble pillar in a yellow raincoat, crying with both fists clenched under her chin. A purple umbrella lay on the floor beside her, one rib bent out of shape. People noticed her in the way busy people noticed problems, briefly, with concern that did not quite become action. Emma started toward her, but Jackson Vale crossed the lobby first. He had been moving with Cole Mercer and 2 attorneys, his face set in the cold expression that made employees suddenly remember urgent work. Then he stopped. No announcement, no irritation, no visible decision. He simply turned, walked to the child, and crouched in front of her in a navy suit that probably cost more than Emma's rent. He picked up the umbrella. "You dropped your shield," he said. The little girl hiccuped through her tears. "It's not a shield. In this weather it is." She stared at him, uncertain. Jackson held the umbrella out like it mattered. Like she mattered. Then he looked toward the security desk. "Find her father." The words were quiet. Everyone moved. Emma stood near the elevator with the name cards bending under her fingers. She watched Jackson remain beside the child until a panicked man came rushing through the lobby calling her name. The father thanked him 3 times. Jackson was already turning away by the second thank you. His face once again unreadable, his mercy folded away before anyone could make a story of it. That should have been nothing. A small kindness, a moment. But Emma carried it upstairs like a match cupped in both hands. After that, she noticed too much. She noticed that Jackson never flirted with women who leaned close at fundraisers. He let them talk, let them laugh, let them believe they had charmed him, then answered only the question that mattered and moved on. She noticed that he remembered the names of janitors, drivers, and junior analysts, but never used warmth to make people forget who held power. She noticed that he listened longer than most men in charge and spoke less than men who needed to hear themselves sound important. She noticed the weariness under his control. That was the dangerous part. Not his looks, though those were difficult enough. Tall, dark-haired, clean jaw eyes the color of strong coffee left too long in the cup. Not his money. Not even the fear he inspired. It was the feeling that somewhere beneath all that discipline lived a man who had learned tenderness was a liability and buried it alive. Emma had no right to see that. She did anyway. By the time she realized she loved him, it was too late to put the feeling back. She did not tell anyone. Not Tessa Grant from accounting, who had become her closest thing to a friend at Vale Harbor. Not her mother, who still called twice a month and spent most of the call talking about neighbors' bills and Caleb's latest trouble. Not even herself, if she could avoid it. Loving Jackson Vale was a private mistake, a silent fever, a thing she could survive as long as he never knew. So she built rituals around not wanting too much. She said good morning in the same voice every day. She handed him files without letting her fingers shake. She learned his schedule, his coffee, the meetings that left him colder than usual, the calls that made Cole stand closer to the door. She knew the sound of his shoes on the executive floor. She knew the silence that came before him. She knew he hated wasted words and liked blue ink on final contracts. She knew he sometimes stood by the window after difficult calls, looking down at the river as if it had taken something from him and refused to give it back. And still for 1 year he barely looked at her. Until Noah Brooks made her laugh. By noon, Emma had replayed that moment so many times it had lost all edges and become something dreamlike. Noah had always been easy to like. He worked building security mostly on the lower floors, but he had a talent for appearing where people needed a door opened, a box carried, or a joke told before the day became too heavy. He was tall, sandy-haired, broad-shouldered in a comfortable way with warm eyes, and the kind of smile that made strangers relax before they meant to. He had noticed Emma months ago. Not dramatically, not in a way that trapped her. He noticed small things, that she took the stairs when the elevators were crowded, that she ate at her desk when the schedule got bad, that she liked coffee with 1 cream and 2 sugars, that she smiled at cleaning staff and held doors for interns carrying too much. A week earlier, when she dropped a folder near the lobby turnstiles and half the contents scattered, Noah had knelt to help before anyone else moved. "You know," he said while gathering papers, "for someone who organizes the life of the scariest man in Louisiana, you have terrible luck with gravity." Emma had laughed then, too, but quietly. This morning had been different. This morning, Jackson heard. At 12:15, Tessa appeared beside Emma's desk, holding a container of gumbo from the cafeteria and wearing the expression she got when gossip was burning a hole through her professionalism. "Do I want to know?" Tessa asked. Emma did not look up. "No." "That answers that." "Tessa, I'm just saying the entire floor went silent like somebody found a snake in the printer." Emma clicked open a calendar invite. Nothing happened. Tessa leaned one hip against the side of the desk. "Emma, I work in accounting. I respect numbers records and women who lie better than that." Emma's mouth twitched despite herself. Tessa lowered her voice. Noah got sent downstairs by Cole Mercer. Cole Mercer does not deliver casual workplace feedback. Cole Mercer looks like he was carved out of an unpaid debt. Emma glanced at Jackson's door. Tessa followed her gaze and softened. Did Vale say something to you? Emma should have said no. Instead, she heard herself say, He said he couldn't stop looking at me. Tessa went very still. For a moment, all the humor left her face. That is not a small thing from a man like him. I know. No, Em. I don't think you do. Emma finally looked at her. Tessa's voice dropped lower. Jackson Vale doesn't notice something unless he's already decided it matters. And things that matter to him don't stay simple. Emma wanted to argue. She wanted to say Tessa was being dramatic, that this was just an awkward office moment wrapped in too much imagination. But Jackson's voice still lived under her skin, and nothing about it had felt simple. Tessa touched the edge of Emma's desk. Just be careful. Emma gave a small nod. Careful was the one thing she knew how to be. The afternoon stretched. Jackson stayed behind his closed door for most of it, but his presence pressed against the floor anyway. Men came and went. Cole moved in and out twice, once carrying a black folder once with nothing in his hands, and a look on his face that made the junior assistants stare at their screens a little harder. At 2, Jackson called for the revised port security brief. Emma brought it in. His office was darker than the hall, the blinds half drawn against the afternoon glare. The furniture was elegant and severe. Dark wood, black leather, a long conference table, a bar cart no one touched during business hours. Behind his desk, the city spread wide and wet and restless. Jackson stood near the window with his phone in one hand. He turned when she entered. Emma held the folder out. Revised brief for the port security meeting. He did not take it immediately. His eyes moved over her face with unsettling patience, as if he was comparing the woman in front of him to the one he had ignored for a year and finding evidence against himself. Emma's hand tightened around the folder. Mr. Vale. He took it then. Their fingers brushed. Barely. Still, her breath caught. His gaze dropped to her hand, then lifted. Did you eat? The question was so ordinary it confused her. Yes. A lie. His eyes narrowed slightly. Emma hated that he knew. I had coffee, she added. That is not food. It is in some offices. The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile exactly, the shadow of one. It changed his face so briefly she almost missed it. Then his phone buzzed. Whatever softness had threatened the room disappeared. He looked at the screen and the man before her became still in a different way. Colder. Older. He answered in Italian. Emma did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. Quiet command. Controlled anger. A warning wrapped in velvet. She should have left. Instead, she stood there 1 second too long listening to a language that made him seem less like a CEO and more like the heir to something ancient and violent. Jackson ended the call. You're staring, he said. Heat climbed into her cheeks. I'm sorry. Don't be. That was worse. She lowered her eyes. Will you need anything else? For a moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, yes. Emma looked up. His gaze held hers. Then he turned back toward his desk and set the folder down. But not yet. She left with her pulse unsteady. At 5:30, the sky outside had darkened into a bruised purple. Rain tapped against the windows. Most of the executive floor emptied slowly. People taking calls as they moved toward the elevators. Coats folded over arms, voices soft with end-of-day fatigue. Emma stayed late. She told herself it was because the council packet needed final formatting, because Jackson's Thursday calendar had 3 conflicts, because someone from legal had mislabeled 2 attachments. The truth was less tidy. She was not ready to walk past his office door and feel him not stop her. At 6:15, the door opened. Emma looked up before she could stop herself. Jackson stepped out wearing his black overcoat, Cole behind him. He paused near her desk. The pause was small. To anyone else, meaningless. To Emma, it felt like the whole floor had tilted. "You are still here," he said. "I had work to finish. You always do." She could not tell if that was praise or accusation. Cole looked toward the elevators with the careful blankness of a man pretending not to listen. Jackson's eyes moved to the stack of folders on her desk, then to the untouched cafeteria container Tessa had left beside her keyboard. "You didn't eat." Emma sighed softly. "You're very interested in my lunch today. I am interested in things I missed." The answer landed between them with too much weight. Emma had no safe reply. Jackson put on his gloves with slow precision. "Go home, Emma." Her name again. No title. No distance. She nodded. "Yes, Mr. Vale." His face changed at the formality. "Not much. Enough." Then he walked away. Emma watched the private elevator close around him and Cole. Only after he was gone did she let out the breath she had been holding. She left 20 minutes later. Outside New Orleans smelled like rain on stone and river mud. Streetlights glowed through mist. A saxophone played somewhere down the block, the notes bending soft and lonely through the evening air. Emma pulled her coat tighter around herself and walked toward the streetcar stop with her bag tucked under one arm. The city felt alive in the way it always did after dark. Beautiful, watchful, half-drunk on its own secrets. She passed a restaurant with fogged windows and candle-lit tables. A couple laughed beneath the awning, their shoulders pressed together. A delivery driver cursed at traffic. Water ran along the curb in silver lines. Emma should have felt ordinary again. Instead, she felt marked by a look. Her apartment above the bakery was warm when she got home. The smell of cinnamon and butter had seeped through the floorboards from the day's baking. The radiator clicked near the window. Her basil plant leaned toward the glass as if waiting for better light. Emma dropped her keys in the little ceramic bowl by the door and stood still. The quiet wrapped around her. Usually she liked the smallness of the place. It gave her comfort. Here, no one expected anything from her. No one watched her answer phones or manage powerful men. No one saw her wanting something she could never have. Tonight, the apartment felt too small for what Jackson had said. She changed into soft pants and an old two-lane sweatshirt she had bought from a thrift store, even though she had never attended the university. She heated soup on the stove and forgot to eat it. She checked her phone twice, though she did not know what she expected to find. Nothing from Jackson. Of course. What would he even say? "Sorry I ignored you for a year. Sorry I became jealous when another man made you laugh. Sorry I looked at you once and changed the weather in your body." Emma laughed once under her breath and pressed her palms to the counter. She was losing her mind. At 9, her mother called. Emma answered because ignoring the call would bring 3 more. "Hey, Mom. Finally. I was starting to think you forgot I exist." Emma closed her eyes. "I just got home from work." Her mother launched into a story about Caleb borrowing money a neighbor's broken fence and the clinic changing its scheduling system. Emma listened, murmured in the right places, and stirred soup she no longer wanted. 10 minutes passed before her mother asked, "You okay?" Emma looked toward the dark window over the sink. Outside, headlights slid along the wet street. "I'm fine. You sound tired." "I am." "Well, don't let that job eat you alive. Rich people don't care if you sleep." Emma almost smiled. "No, they don't." After they hung up, Emma stood in the kitchen with the phone in her hand and wondered what her mother would say if she told the truth. "I think my dangerous boss noticed me today. I think I wanted him to." Instead, she poured the soup into a container, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Sleep came slowly. When it did, it brought dreams of glass doors, purple umbrellas, coffee cups, and Jackson Vale standing in a dark office saying her name like he had just discovered it could hurt him. Morning came gray and damp. Emma woke before her alarm. For a moment she lay still, listening to the city begin beneath her window. A truck backing up behind the bakery, pipes knocking in the wall, someone laughing on the sidewalk below. Her phone showed 6:20. She had 3 messages, one from Tessa. Tell me if you survived the weirdest day in corporate history. One from an unknown delivery service confirming a package she had not ordered. One from Noah. Hope yesterday didn't get you in trouble. Coffee peace offering still valid. Emma stared at Noah's message longer than she meant to. He was kind. Kindness should have been simple. She typed back, I'm okay. Thank you for checking. Then she deleted the second sentence. Then she typed it again. Finally, she sent only, I'm okay. The unknown delivery message bothered her for a second. She had not ordered anything. Maybe spam. Maybe a wrong number. She deleted it and got dressed. By 7:15, she was walking through the lobby of Vale Harbor Group. The building looked the same. Marble floors, brass trim, security desk, the faint smell of coffee and expensive cologne. People moved through the space with the practiced urgency of those who believed time belonged to someone richer. Noah stood near the security station. He looked up when she entered. His smile was smaller than usual. Morning, Emma. Morning. You sure you're okay? She gave him the best smile she could manage. Yes. His eyes searched hers. Before he could say more, Cole Mercer appeared near the private elevator. He did not speak. He did not need to. Noah's jaw tightened. Emma felt the space between the two men like a wire pulled taut. She stepped toward the elevator. Have a good day, Noah. He nodded. You too. The elevator rose in silence. Cole stood beside her, hands folded in front of him, expression unreadable. Emma watched the numbers climb. At the 28th floor, Cole spoke without looking at her. Mr. Vale does not like surprises. Emma glanced at him. Is that advice? Yes. The doors opened. Emma stepped onto the executive floor with her bag on her shoulder, her heart already bracing for the sight of Jackson's closed office door. Then she stopped. Her desk was gone. For one foolish second, Emma Carter thought she had stepped onto the wrong floor. The stretch of carpet outside Jackson Vale's office lay bare beneath the soft morning lights. No desk, no chair, no monitor, no brass lamp glowing in the corner where she liked to work before the rest of the building woke up. Even her little basil plant was gone, the one she watered every Friday and pretended was not slowly dying under corporate air. Only a pale square remained in the carpet where her chair had stood for a year. Emma stopped so suddenly that Cole Mercer nearly walked into her. He did not look surprised. That told her enough. Across the executive floor, conversations thinned. A woman from legal looked up, then immediately looked back down at her tablet. One of the junior analysts froze with a coffee cup halfway to his mouth. The receptionist near the glass doors suddenly became fascinated by the visitor log. Everyone knew. Everyone except Emma. The floor manager hurried toward her with the expression of a man carrying bad news he hoped would not stain his hands. Miss Carter, he said quietly. Mr. Vale reassigned your workspace. Emma stared at the empty place where her life had been arranged with such careful modesty. Reassigned it where the man's eyes flickered toward Jackson's office. Emma followed his gaze. Through the glass wall, she saw it. A new workstation had been placed inside Jackson Vale's private office 6 feet from his desk. Her monitor sat there, her keyboard, her lamp, her tray of files. Her basil plant rested near the corner in its chipped clay pot, absurdly familiar, in a room built for wealth control and intimidation. Her stomach tightened. Jackson was already inside, seated behind his desk, reading from a black folder as though he had not just moved the center of her working life without a word. Emma turned back to the floor manager. "When was this done early this morning? Who authorized it?" The man did not answer. He did not need to. Emma took one breath, then another. She could feel the eyes around her pretending not to be eyes. Heat moved up her neck, but beneath it came something cleaner than embarrassment. Anger. She walked to Jackson's door and knocked once. His voice came through the glass. "Come in." Emma entered and closed the door behind her with more control than she felt. The office smelled faintly of black coffee cedar and rain on wool. Morning light touched the wide windows behind him, turning the Mississippi into a dull silver ribbon beyond the city. Jackson did not rise. He finished reading the line in front of him, marked the page with a pen, and only then looked up. "Good morning, Emma." The sound of her name in his mouth made her pulse betray her. She ignored it. "You moved my desk." "Yes." His answer was so calm that she almost laughed. "Without asking me." "Yes. That is not how this works." Jackson leaned back in his chair. His dark eyes held hers with a patience that felt more dangerous than temper. "How does it work?" "You speak to me. You explain the change. You give me a chance to respond before you pick up my things and put them wherever you want them." A small silence settled between them. For the first time, something in his expression shifted. Not guilt exactly, but recognition. "You are angry." "I am trying very hard to be professional." "That was not what I said." Emma tightened her fingers around the strap of her bag. "People are staring. They will stop." "No, they will not. They will whisper. They will decide they know what happened before I do. They will turn me into a story by lunch." His jaw hardened. "If anyone disrespects you, they answer to me. That is not the same as respecting me." The words struck the room and stayed there. Jackson went still. Outside the glass, the office continued moving, but inside the air seemed to narrow around them. Emma regretted the tremor in her voice, but not the words. Jackson set his pen down. "What does respect look like to you?" The question surprised her enough that she almost stepped back. She had expected command, dismissal, maybe cold irritation. Not that. She looked toward the workstation near his desk at her lamp casting warm light over papers she had not placed there. "It starts with not moving my life around like furniture." Jackson's gaze followed hers. For a moment, he said nothing. When he spoke, his voice was lower. "That was not my intention, but it was the result." His eyes returned to her. "You are right." Emma blinked. Jackson Vale, admitting fault, felt so unlikely that for half a second she wondered whether she had misunderstood him. He stood buttoning his suit jacket with slow precision and crossed the space between them. He stopped far enough away not to crowd her close enough that she noticed the faint shadow beneath his eyes. He had not slept much. Somehow that annoyed her more. "I should have told you," he said. "Yes. I should have asked." "Yes. I still want you in here." Emma exhaled through her nose. "That is not an apology." "No," he said. "It is the truth." Her anger should have sharpened. Instead, it tangled with something warmer, something she did not want to name. Why, she asked. Jackson looked at her the way he had yesterday, as if seeing her had become a discipline he could no longer abandon. "Because I spent a year pretending distance made me decent." Her breath caught. He stepped past her, not touching, and walked to the new workstation. "You will manage internal scheduling from here. All documents for me come through you first. Legal stops bypassing you. Acquisition stops treating you like a messenger. If anyone wants my attention, they earn yours." Emma stared at him. That sounds like a promotion disguised as a scandal. His mouth curved faintly. It can be both. You are impossible. I have been told worse. I am serious, Jackson. The first name slipped out before she could catch it. The office changed. Jackson's eyes darkened, not with anger, with something quieter and much less safe. Say that again. Emma felt heat rise in her face. No. A trace of amusement touched him. Then sit down, Emma. She wanted to refuse on principle. Every stubborn bone in her body urged her to stand there until he understood that she could not be arranged by force even by a man who looked at her like she had become the one flaw in his control. But her legs were not as steady as her pride. She crossed to the new desk and set her bag down. The chair creaked softly as she sat. For a few minutes, work saved her. The familiar rhythm found her hands. She logged in, checked the calendar, opened a set of flagged emails, and began answering the messages already piling up because half the building had apparently forgotten how to route paperwork the moment her desk moved 6 feet. Jackson returned to his own desk and began reading signing, deciding, ending conversations with a few quiet words into his phone. Emma tried not to look at him. That was difficult when he was so close. For a year she had known him in fragments. A profile as he passed her desk, the back of his hand as he accepted a file, the set of his shoulders after a bad call, his voice through a closed door. Now there was no door. She could hear the faint scratch of his pen, see the way his left thumb touched the edge of each page before turning it. Notice the narrow scar near his wrist when his cuff shifted. He was not less intimidating up close. He was worse because power became human at close range. Breathing, tired, warm-skinned beneath the expensive suit. At 9:30, the first person came in. A senior legal assistant opened the door with 2 folders in hand and stopped when she saw Emma. Her eyes flicked to Jackson, then to Emma, then back to Jackson. Mr. Vale Legal sent the revised agreements. Leave them with Emma. The assistant hesitated. Of course. She crossed the office, placed the folders on Emma's desk, and left too quickly. Emma waited until the door shut. You enjoyed that. Jackson did not look up. Yes. Do you ever pretend to be sorry when useful? Despite herself, Emma almost smiled. He saw it. That was the problem with being in the same room as him. There was nowhere for her face to hide. By 10:15, the floor had adjusted to the new scandal by feeding it. People came to the door with questions that could have been emailed. A manager from acquisitions asked Emma for access to Jackson's 11 o'clock meeting as if he had not ignored her existence for months. A partner from development called her Miss Carter with a sudden politeness that felt polished for public use. Jackson noticed all of it. He said little. That made it worse. Near 11, Tessa appeared at the door holding a stack of expense reports she definitely did not need to deliver personally. Her eyes widened when she saw Emma inside. Then she recovered. Morning. Emma gave her a look that begged for mercy. Tessa ignored it. Mr. Vale Finance needs approval on these. Emma will review them first. Tessa's brows rose just a little. Of course. She handed the reports to Emma and leaned in as if checking a number on the top page. Under her breath, she whispered, Are you alive? Emma whispered back. Unfortunately. Tessa's mouth twitched. Jackson's voice came from across the room. I can hear both of you. Tessa straightened immediately. Emma closed her eyes. Tessa smiled with the bright innocence of a woman who had survived worse than powerful men. Excellent acoustics, sir. Then she left before anyone could respond. For 1 second, silence held. Then Emma laughed softly. She tried to stop it. Failed. Jackson looked up. The sound died in her throat, but not quickly enough. His gaze was on her again, intent and unreadable. What she asked. You do that as if it is dangerous. Do what, Laugh? Emma looked down at the reports. On this floor it might be. Something in his face changed. You should not have had to become that careful. The words were too close to tenderness. Emma had no defense ready. A knock saved her. Noah Brooks stood at the open door. The warmth he usually carried was gone from his expression. His jaw was set, his eyes fixed on Emma first, not Jackson. Emma, he said. Can I talk to you? Jackson's body went still behind his desk. Emma felt it before she saw it. Noah, she said carefully. Jackson's voice was calm enough to freeze water. You can speak from there. Noah looked at him. With respect, Mr. Vale, I asked Emma. The room seemed to lose temperature. Cole appeared in the doorway behind Noah, silent as a shadow. Emma stood. Stop. Both men looked at her. The word had come out sharper than she intended, but she did not take it back. She walked around her desk and faced Noah. I am okay. Noah searched her face. You don't look okay. That is not your call to make. His expression softened with hurt. I know that. I just saw your desk disappear overnight, and now you are sitting in his office like nobody is supposed to question it. Jackson rose. Emma turned and gave him one look. Do not. He stopped. The fact that he stopped was not lost on anyone. Noah saw it too. Emma looked back at him. I did not ask for how this happened. I am handling that. Noah's gaze moved briefly to Jackson. Can you handle him? The question landed with more concern than insult, but it still made Jackson's eyes go cold. Emma stepped closer to Noah, lowering her voice. I need you to trust me enough to let me answer for myself. Noah swallowed. For a moment, the easy man from the coffee cup was gone, replaced by someone who understood he had walked into a room where the rules had teeth. Okay, he said quietly. I just needed to hear you say it. I'm saying it. He nodded, though his eyes were sad. Then I'll leave it alone. He turned to go. Jackson spoke. Mr. Brooks. Noah paused. Jackson's gaze was hard. Your concern was noted. Noah held his stare for 1 second too long. So was yours. Then he left. Cole remained in the doorway for half a beat, his expression revealing nothing. Jackson gave him a faint nod. Cole disappeared. Emma let out a breath. Jackson looked at her. You defended him. I defended myself. He wants you. He was kind to me. That does not answer what I said. No, but it answers what matters. Jackson came around his desk slowly. Emma did not move back. You think kindness is harmless? I think not every man who sees a woman wants to own her. The words were out before she could soften them. Jackson stopped. His face closed, but not before she saw the hit land. For a moment he looked less like the most dangerous man in New Orleans and more like someone standing at the edge of an old wound. You believe that is what I want? Emma's throat tightened. I don't know what you want. His answer came quietly. Yes, you do. The space between them seemed to shrink. Emma could smell his cologne now clean and dark under the coffee and paper in the room. She could see the pulse at the base of his throat, steady but not unaffected. She forced herself to ask the question. Then say it. Jackson's eyes held hers. Not here. The refusal should have disappointed her. Instead, it frightened her because it sounded less like avoidance and more like restraint. At noon, lunch arrived on a rolling cart. Emma looked up from an email. I can eat somewhere else? Jackson took off his jacket and draped it over the back of his chair. You can. She waited. He looked at her. I would rather you didn't. There it was again. Not command exactly, not request either. Something in between, sharpened by honesty. Emma should have refused. Instead, she joined him at the small table near the windows because she was tired of pretending distance had ever protected her. Rain slid down the glass in thin lines. Below New Orleans moved in muted color umbrellas, bobbing along sidewalks, traffic shining through wet streets, the river dragging its old weight past docks and cranes. For a while, they ate in silence. It was not comfortable. It was intimate. Emma set down her fork first. "You said distance made you decent." Jackson looked at her over the rim of his water glass. "Yes." "What does that mean?" He set the glass down. "It means there are parts of my life that do not forgive attachment." Emma studied him. The rumors are polite." She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "And you thought ignoring me would keep me away from that?" "I thought if I did not look, no one else would know where to aim." The confession was quiet, almost clinical. It hurt anyway. Emma sat back. "So you did see me?" Jackson did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. A year of mornings moved through her at once. Every nod, every empty glance, every good morning that had landed on the floor between them and died there. Her voice softened without her permission. "You let me think I was nothing to you." His jaw tightened. "No. Yes." His eyes flashed. "You were never nothing. Then what was I?" He leaned forward, both hands around the water glass, though he did not drink. "A risk." Emma's breath caught. The word should not have sounded like a confession. It did. Outside, thunder rolled low over the city. Emma looked away because the room was becoming too small for the truth. "I spent a year trying not to feel things for you," she said. The words slipped out so quietly she almost believed he had not heard. Jackson went completely still. When she looked back, his face had changed. Not softened. Stripped. "Say that again." Emma's pulse climbed. "No." "Emma." His voice was low enough to touch. She stood because sitting felt impossible. The chair moved softly against the floor. I should not have said it once. Jackson stood too. He did not rush toward her. That would have been easier. Instead, he crossed the space with the slow certainty of a man giving her every second to step away. She did not. He stopped in front of her. "Did you mean it?" Emma looked up at him. "Yes." The word trembled, but it stood. Something moved across his face, sharp and almost painful. "I was careful for nothing," he said. Emma's eyes burned. "You call that careful? No." His hand lifted, then paused near her cheek. "I call it cowardice." That undid her more than arrogance would have. His fingers touched her jaw with a care so at odds with his reputation that Emma forgot how to breathe. "I am sorry," he said, "for moving my desk, for making you feel unseen." The tenderness of it opened something in her chest that anger had been holding shut. "Jackson," she whispered. His control broke. He kissed her. There was nothing polite in it, nothing casual. His mouth found hers like a vow made too late, like a man trying to apologize and claim and confess all in the same breath. Emma's hands rose to his shirt, fingers curling into the crisp fabric because the room had tilted and he was the only solid thing left in it. For one suspended moment, there was no office, no floor full of watching people, no Noah, no Tessa, no rumors, no danger waiting beneath the polished surface of his life. Only Jackson's hand at the back of her neck. Only the heat of him. Only the impossible relief of being wanted by the man she had loved in silence for so long. When he pulled back, they were both breathing harder than they should have been. His forehead hovered near hers. Emma's fingers were still twisted in his shirt. "This cannot happen here," she whispered. His eyes dropped to her mouth. It already did. A laugh broke out of her, small and shaken. He looked at her like the sound hurt him. Then someone knocked once. Jackson stepped back instantly. By the time the door opened, his face had become controlled again, but Emma had seen the man beneath it. She could not unsee him now. Cole entered. He took one look at Jackson, then at Emma, then politely looked at neither. "Boss." Jackson adjusted his cuff. "What is it?" Cole's voice was flat, but his eyes were not. "Someone downstairs has been asking questions." Jackson's expression cooled. About what? Cole looked at Emma. Not what. The room went silent. Cole closed the door behind him. About her. Cole's words did not echo, but they seemed to stay in the room long after he said them. About her. Emma felt Jackson's attention shift before he moved. The warmth from the kiss disappeared so completely that the air around him seemed to harden. His eyes were no longer on her mouth or her face, or the fragile thing that had just happened between them. They were on Cole now, dark and still the way the river looked at night when it hid its current under black water. What questions Jackson asked. Cole closed the office door fully behind him. His gaze moved once to Emma, then back to Jackson. That one glance told her the questions were not harmless. It told her they were personal. It told her the world outside this glass office had reached for her before she even understood she had stepped into it. A man came through the main lobby at 11:40, Cole said. Not a client, not a vendor. He used a false company name and asked for access to building administration. Jackson said nothing. Cole continued. Security stalled him. He asked if Emma Carter still worked on the executive floor. Emma's skin went cold. Jackson's jaw moved once. Still, Cole nodded. That was the word. Emma gripped the edge of the lunch table behind her. Maybe he knew me from somewhere else. Neither man looked convinced. Cole's voice remained calm. That made it worse. He asked what time she usually left, whether she used the staff entrance, whether she drove or took the streetcar. Emma forced herself to breathe. Jackson turned slightly toward the windows, then back. The city beyond the glass was blurred by rain-soft gray buildings and dark streets, ordinary people moving through an ordinary afternoon. Inside the office, ordinary had become impossible. Who was he? Jackson asked. We are working on the image. He kept his face low baseball cap, cheap rain jacket. Paid cash for visitor parking. No clean plate on the car. He left after security refused access, then circled toward the loading level. Jackson's voice dropped. How far did he get? Not far. Who stopped him? Marcus and Dell. Jackson gave a small nod. Good. Emma looked between them. Stopped him how Cole did not answer. Jackson did. They turned him around. That is not an answer. It is the answer you need right now. The words struck sparks against her fear. Emma straightened. No. You do not get to decide that. Jackson's eyes came back to hers. They were colder than before, but not at her. Never at her. That was somehow more frightening. You have been in this for less than an hour. I have been in my own life for 24 years. Cole's mouth moved as if he almost approved, though he wisely said nothing. Jackson held her gaze for a long beat. Then he looked at Cole. Show me the rest. Cole reached inside his jacket and took out a cream-colored envelope. It was thick, expensive paper, the kind used for wedding invitations or threats from men who believed presentation mattered. No stamp, no return address, only Jackson's name written on the front in black ink. Emma stared at it. A strange numbness moved through her hands. Jackson took the envelope without hurry, but Emma saw the subtle change in him. His fingers did not shake. Men like Jackson Vale did not shake. Instead, he became too precise, as if every muscle in his body had been ordered not to reveal the violence beneath it. He opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. For 1 second his face gave nothing away. Then his eyes went dead. Emma stepped toward him before either man could stop her. "What is it?" Jackson folded the photo inward, but she had already seen color. Green wool, wet pavement, a familiar awning. Jackson. He looked at her. She reached for the photograph. He did not give it to her. That hurt more than she expected. "Emma," he said quietly. "Give it to me." His hand tightened around the paper. Cole spoke from near the door. "She has the right to see it." Jackson looked at him with a warning sharp enough to cut glass. Cole did not move. Emma held out her hand. After a moment, Jackson placed the photograph in her palm. It was her, leaving her apartment the night before. Her green coat buttoned to her throat, her bag over one shoulder, her hair pinned up a few loose strands damp from the rain. She was looking down at her keys, unaware of the camera, unaware of the person across the street, unaware that a moment from her private life had been taken and delivered into Jackson's office like proof of ownership. The bakery sign glowed behind her. Sweet Maze. The old blue door to her building stood half open. The picture was clear enough to show her face. Emma's mouth went dry. She turned the photograph over. On the back, written in the same black ink, were 7 words. "Pretty thing for a careful man. Choose faster." The room seemed to tilt. Emma read it once, then again. The second time was worse. Pretty thing. Not woman. Not person. Thing. For a careful man. They were not only threatening her, they were speaking to Jackson through her. Emma set the photograph on the table because her fingers no longer trusted themselves. Jackson's voice was very soft. "Cole, I already pulled footage from the bakery block. Street camera was down. Building camera looped for 11 minutes between 8:30 and 8:41. Emma looked up. Looped. Cole nodded. "Someone fed it old footage. My building has 1 camera in the lobby." "Not anymore," Jackson said. The authority in his voice made her anger flare through the fear. "You cannot just install cameras in my building." Jackson looked at her as if she had misunderstood the size of the room they were standing in. "They know your door. It is still my door. They know your face. So do hundreds of people. They know your schedule, your address, and enough about me to think sending that photograph was worth the risk." His control was still there, but something dangerous moved beneath it. "This is not gossip. This is not office drama. This is a message from a man who does not send messages unless he has already decided how much blood he is willing to spend." Emma's anger faltered. Cole spoke quietly. "Rourke." Jackson did not look away from Emma. "Yes." The name meant nothing to her, but it changed the air. "Who is Rourke?" she asked. Jackson walked to the bar cart and poured water into a glass he did not drink. He held it for a moment, then set it down untouched. "Silas Rourke controls part of the East Bank dock network. Old crews, old loyalties, men who believe the river still belongs to whoever can take it and keep it." Emma listened, her pulse still too fast. "He wants the port security contract," Jackson said. "The federal one tied to the new freight corridor. If he controls the blind spots, he controls the shipments. If he controls the shipments, half the city starts paying him again. And you are in his way. I am always in someone's way. That is not funny. It was not meant to be." Cole stepped closer. "Rourke tried money first, then leverage against a councilman, then a warehouse fire near Algiers that was meant to look accidental." Emma stared at Jackson. "You never said anything." Jackson's expression did not change. "To you? To anyone. People who needed to know knew." She thought of yesterday morning. Jackson walking past her with his phone in hand. The calm suit, the controlled face, the man who looked like he owned silence. How much had been happening behind that closed door while she arranged meetings and ordered coffee 10 feet away? Her voice came out lower. "And now I need to know." Jackson's gaze sharpened. "Yes." The answer surprised her. Then he added, "Enough to obey when I tell you not to go home tonight." There it was. The wall. Emma stepped back. "No." Jackson's head tilted slightly. "No. No. You do not get to put truth in one hand and an order in the other." His eyes darkened. "I am not negotiating your safety. You are not the only person allowed to care whether I survive." The words shook. She hated that. She hated the photograph on the table. She hated the clean handwriting. She hated that some stranger had stood outside her apartment while she fumbled with her keys and thought about soup and Jackson's voice. She hated most of all that fear made Jackson's control feel almost comforting. Almost. But she had spent too much of her life becoming small because other people were tired, angry, loud, or afraid. She could not step from invisibility straight into a locked room and call it love. Jackson came closer. "They know where you live. I understand that." "No, you do not." His voice cut low and sharp. Emma flinched. He saw it immediately. The anger did not leave him, but his face changed. "Emma." She lifted her chin. "Do not talk to me like I am an item on your risk report." A long silence followed. Rain slid down the windows in thin silver threads. Cole looked toward the door, giving them what privacy the room allowed without actually leaving. Jackson drew one slow breath. "You are right." Again the words landed strangely from him. He looked at the photograph on the table. When men like Rourke find something soft, they press until it breaks. If he believes you matter to me, he will test it. If he believes I am hiding you, he will look harder. If he believes I am careless, he will move faster. Emma swallowed. "And what do you believe Jackson looked at her then?" The answer was in his face before he spoke. "I believe I should have left you outside my office and let you hate me for another year." That hurt. Emma turned away. He stepped toward her but stopped himself before touching her. His voice lowered. "Not because I regret you." She closed her eyes. "Then because you regret being seen with me." "No." "Because you regret kissing me." "No." The force of that word pulled her back around. Jackson's face was hard, but his eyes were not. "I regret that the first honest thing I have done in years put a target on your back before I had the right to protect you." Emma's throat tightened. "You do not need the right to help me." "No," he said. "But I need your trust to keep from becoming every man you have ever had to survive." The honesty moved through her like a bruise being touched. Cole shifted near the door. "Boss, we need a decision." Jackson did not look away from Emma. "She comes to the house." Emma opened her mouth. Jackson raised one hand, not to silence her, but to hold the moment still. "If you choose it." The room changed. Emma stared at him. He looked like the words cost him something. "My house in the Garden District is secure. Gated entry, private staff. No one reaches you there without going through me, Cole, and several men who dislike failure." Cole's expression remained blank. Emma almost laughed, but fear kept it trapped in her chest. Jackson continued, "You can call whoever you need. You can keep your phone. You can leave if you decide to leave, though I will argue with you until I lose my voice. You will know what I know if it affects your safety." Emma studied him, searching for the command beneath the offer. It was there. Of course it was. Jackson Vale did not become gentle just because he was trying. But something else was there too. Restraint. Effort. A man trained by violence trying to hold his hands open. She looked down at the photograph again. Her own face stared back at her from a stolen moment. The old fear rose in her. The fear of being seen by the wrong person. The fear of having no control over what someone else decided she was worth. Emma picked up the photo and tore it in half, then in half again. Jackson watched her. "I will go with you tonight," she said. His shoulders eased by a fraction. But not because you ordered me. No. And tomorrow I decide what happens next. His jaw tightened. She waited. Finally, he said, "Yes." Cole took out his phone. "I will bring the car to the private entrance." Jackson nodded. 2 in front, 1 behind. Have Ruth prepare the blue room. Emma looked at him. The blue room. My guest room. You have named guest rooms? Cole looked down at his phone with suspicious focus. Jackson said, "Ruth named them. That does not make it less strange." For the first time since the envelope arrived, something almost human touched Jackson's mouth. "I will tell her you disapprove." "I did not say I disapproved." "No," he said. "You only looked offended by architecture." The smallest laugh escaped her. It surprised all 3 of them. Jackson looked at her as if the sound had struck him in the chest again. Emma turned away first. The drive out of Vale Harbor happened through the private loading level, not the main lobby. Emma sat beside Jackson in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows while rain whispered against the glass. Cole rode in front. Another car pulled ahead of them. A third followed behind. New Orleans passed in wet fragments, iron balconies, palm fronds shaking under rain, neon signs in puddles, a street musician packing up his trumpet beneath a green awning, tourists hurrying through the French Quarter with plastic ponchos and bright drinks they refused to abandon. Emma watched it all as if she were leaving a life she had not appreciated enough while she still owned it. Jackson sat close enough for his sleeve to brush hers when the car turned. He did not touch her. The restraint was louder than touch. She looked down at her hands. "Did he know about me before yesterday?" Jackson answered carefully. "I do not know." "That means maybe." "Yes." She nodded once. The truth was ugly, but she preferred it. "Have people used someone against you before?" For a while, only the rain answered. Then Jackson said, "Yes." Emma turned toward him. He looked out the window, his profile cut by passing light. "My father kept ledgers on everyone. Debts, affairs, children no one claimed, addictions, sick mothers, lovers. He said a man was only as strong as the things he could afford to lose." Emma said nothing. He believed love was poor accounting. The words were cold, but his voice was not. What did you believe? Jackson looked at her. That he was a cruel man. A beat. Then I grew up and learned cruelty can be useful. Emma's chest tightened. Do you still believe that I believe it works? That is not what I asked. The car slowed near a gated street lined with live oaks. Their branches stretched over the road like dark arms dripping rain. Jackson's eyes stayed on hers. "No," he said. "I do not want to believe it with you." The gate opened. The house stood back from the street behind ironwork and old trees, a Garden District mansion washed in soft amber light. Tall white columns, deep porches, dark shutters, cameras hidden where vines climbed brick, beautiful enough to be mistaken for peaceful. Emma stepped out beneath the covered drive. The air smelled like wet leaves, old stone, and jasmine. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her late 50s stood in the warm, light silver hair pulled into a smooth twist black dress, simple and exact. She looked at Jackson, then at Emma, and understood far more than Emma wanted a stranger to understand. "Mr. Vale." "Ruth. This is Emma Carter." Ruth inclined her head. "Miss Carter, your room is ready." Emma looked at Jackson. "Of course it is." Ruth's eyes warmed just a little. "Mr. Vale prepares for disasters and calls it courtesy." Emma's mouth twitched despite herself. Jackson removed his gloves. "I heard that." "Yes, sir," Ruth said. "You were meant to." The house inside was warmer than Emma expected. Not cozy exactly, but lived in by someone who distrusted clutter and still could not escape history. Dark wood floors, long mirrors, oil paintings of unsmiling ancestors, lamps glowing gold in corners, a grand staircase curving upward beneath a chandelier that looked like frozen rain. Emma followed Ruth upstairs. Her room was painted a deep, muted blue with white curtains, a carved bed, fresh clothes folded at the foot, and a balcony overlooking the garden. It was larger than her apartment. That should have impressed her. Instead, it made her feel strangely young. Ruth set a small tray of tea on the table. No one will enter without knocking. The lock works from the inside. Mr. Vale's room is across the hall. Emma looked toward the door. Across Ruth's face remained perfectly composed. For security. Is that what he called it? He did not call it anything. That is usually when I supply the polite version. Emma almost smiled. When Ruth left, Emma stood alone in the blue room and listened to the silence. It was not like her apartment silence. This one was expensive, guarded layered with footsteps below and cameras outside and men posted beyond windows she could not see. She walked to the balcony doors but did not open them. Rain darkened the garden. Oak branches moved in the wind. Somewhere beyond the walls, New Orleans kept breathing. Emma touched the place where Jackson's hand had held her jaw. Then she pressed that same hand flat against the cold glass. A quiet knock came at the door. "Come in," she said. Jackson entered but stayed near the threshold. That more than anything told her he was trying. "I brought your bag from the office. Cole will have someone collect what you need from your apartment when you are ready." "No strangers in my apartment." His mouth tightened, but he nodded. "Then Cole takes you. Or I do." She turned from the window. "You say that like I already agreed. You said tomorrow you decide." "I did. Then tomorrow argue with me." The absurdity of it nearly broke her. She looked at him standing there in his dark suit, rain still caught in his hair, the most dangerous man she had ever known, trying to be careful in a doorway. "Do you ever get tired of being impossible?" Rarely. This time she did smile. It faded slowly. Jackson. His expression changed at the sound of his name. "I am scared." All the control in his face softened not much, but enough to reveal the man beneath. "I know. I hate that you know." He stepped one pace into the room. "So do I." She waited for him to promise that everything would be fine. He did not. Somehow that made her trust him more. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now I find out who took that photograph." And Rourke Jackson's eyes cooled. Rourke learns he chose poorly. The darkness in his voice should have made her step back. It did not. Maybe that was the most frightening part. Later, after Ruth brought dinner, Emma barely tasted, she found Jackson downstairs in the kitchen. His jacket was gone. His sleeves were rolled to his forearms. A map of the river districts lay across the marble island, weighted by a coffee cup and a black handgun. Emma stopped in the doorway. Jackson looked up. He noticed her eyes on the gun and moved it into a drawer without comment. "You should be sleeping. You should stop saying should." His mouth curved faintly. She came closer, studying the map. Red circles marked warehouses, docks, service roads, and bridges. "This is your life," she said. "Part of it. The part with men taking pictures of women outside their homes." His face tightened. "Yes." She looked at him, then really looked. "Why did you ignore me for a year?" He stared down at the map for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than the rain. "Because I knew if I let myself look, I would not stop." Emma's heart moved painfully. "And that was dangerous. For you. For you too." His eyes lifted to hers. "Yes." The answer was bare enough to silence her. He came around the island slowly, stopping close but not touching. "I thought distance was protection," he said. I thought if I kept you outside the door, my world would not learn your name. Emma looked up at him, but I was still alone outside that door. Regret moved across his face, sharp and real. I know. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jackson lifted his hand, giving her time to refuse. She did not. His fingers brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was gentle, too gentle for the man people feared. Emma, he said. Her name sounded different here. Not like an order, not like a claim, like something he had been keeping under his tongue for too long. She leaned into him before she could decide not to. His mouth found hers slowly this time, not like the office, not hunger breaking loose. This kiss was quieter, threaded with fear apology and the kind of wanting that understood the cost of itself. Emma's hands rested against his chest. Beneath her palms, his heart beat steady and hard. When he pulled back, he did not step away. His forehead rested near hers. You should sleep, he murmured. So should you. I have work. Of course you do. He almost smiled. Emma left him there with the maps and the rain and the river drawn in red circles beneath his hands. Upstairs, the blue room waited in silence. She lay in the too-soft bed and stared at the ceiling, still feeling the shape of his kiss, still seeing the photograph torn in pieces on his office table. Sometime deep in the night, she woke to the murmur of Jackson's voice below. Not loud, not angry. Clear enough to reach her through the old house. If Rourke reaches for her again, he said, I will take his hands first. Emma closed her eyes. The fear did not leave. Neither did the warmth. Across the hall, Jackson's room remained empty, and somewhere below the man who had finally seen her was turning the city inside out because someone else had looked too. Morning came without softness. Gray light pressed against the windows of the blue room, turning the garden below into a blur of wet leaves and iron fencing. Emma woke before anyone knocked, her body already tense as if fear had been sitting beside the bed all night waiting for her eyes to open. For a few seconds, she did not move. She listened. No bakery truck below her window. No neighbor coughing through the wall. No pipes knocking in the old building above Sweet Maze. No streetcar groaning around the corner. Only rainwater dripping from the balcony. The distant sound of men speaking somewhere downstairs, and the quiet weight of a house built to keep danger outside. Then she remembered the photograph, her green coat, her apartment door, her hand on her keys. Pretty thing for a careful man. Emma sat up. Across the hall, Jackson's door stood half open. The bed inside had not been slept in. The sheets remained smooth, untouched, almost accusing. She dressed in the clothes Ruth had left for her dark jeans, a cream sweater, and boots that fit too well to feel accidental. She braided her hair over one shoulder, then unbraided it because her hands needed something to do. In the bathroom mirror, she looked paler than usual, but not broken. That mattered. Downstairs, the house had become a machine. 2 men stood near the back entrance. Another moved past the hallway window with a phone pressed to his ear. Cole was at the dining table with a laptop open, speaking quietly to someone through an earpiece. A map of Emma's neighborhood covered half the table, marked with red circles and black lines. Jackson stood at the far end of the room, sleeves rolled up, one hand braced on the polished wood. He looked up the moment she entered. His eyes moved over her face first, then her clothes, then her hands, as if checking for wounds that had not existed when she went upstairs. You slept, he said. A little. Eat. There was coffee on the sideboard, toast eggs fruit, and a bowl of oatmeal no one had touched. Emma looked at the maps. I want to go to my apartment. Every sound in the room seemed to lower. Cole stopped typing. Jackson did not move. No. The word came too fast. Emma expected it. That did not make it easier to hear. My medication is there. My mother's locket is there. My lease papers, my passport, the cash I keep in the kitchen drawer. I am not leaving my entire life sitting in a building where someone knows the camera loop. I will send people. No strangers in my apartment. Cole will go. Still no. Jackson's jaw tightened. Emma. She stepped closer to the table. You promised I would decide today. His gaze sharpened. I promised you would decide what happens next. I did not promise to stand quietly while you walk back into a compromised building. Then do not stand quietly. Come with me. Cole looked up. Jackson's expression went still. No. Emma let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. You say no, like it ends the conversation. With most people it does. I am not most people. The words landed between them. Jackson's face changed slightly, not soft, not amused, but caught by the truth of it. Emma moved to the map and pointed at the block where her apartment sat above the bakery. If they wanted me last night, they had a chance. They watched. They tested cameras. They sent a message. That means they either were not ready or they needed you to react first. Cole's eyes narrowed. Jackson watched her. Emma continued, voice steadier now. If I go with guards in daylight, they may stay away. If someone has been watching the building, maybe we see what does not belong. I know that hallway. I know my neighbors. I know when Sweet May closes, and she never closes before 4 unless somebody died or the oven exploded. Cole leaned back slightly. She is not wrong. Jackson looked at him. Cole gave one small shrug. Uncomfortable but not wrong. Jackson's stare returned to Emma. You are not bait. I did not say I was. You are asking to walk into a place we know they touched. I am asking to collect what is mine and help you see what they missed. His eyes held hers for a long moment. She could see the war in him. Not fear exactly, but something more violent. The part of him that wanted to lock every door in the city until nothing could reach her. The part that understood she would never forgive him if protection became another kind of cage. Finally, he turned to Cole. 2 cars. No lobby entry. We use the alley behind the bakery. 10 minutes inside. Emma opened her mouth. Jackson pointed at her. Do not negotiate the 10 minutes. I was not going to. He gave her a look. She lifted her chin. I was going to say thank you. That stopped him for half a second. Then his phone lit on the table. Noah Brooks. Emma saw the name before Jackson turned the screen over. Her chest tightened. Jackson's eyes moved to hers. Neither of them spoke. The phone rang twice more. Cole said, Answer it. Jackson picked up. Yes. Noah's voice came through faintly tense and stripped of its usual warmth. Tell Emma not to use the West Service elevator in her building. Emma stepped closer. Jackson switched to speaker. Noah continued. I was checking camera access from yesterday. Somebody cloned a maintenance badge. Not ours. Older system probably from her apartment building vendor. I saw a guy near the camera room late last night when I pulled exterior footage from a nearby property. Jackson's face hardened. You waited until now to say this. I got blocked out of the system twice, Vale. I am saying it now because I have it now. Emma leaned toward the phone. Noah. A pause. His voice softened. Emma, are you okay? I am. What did you see man in a gray cap? Medium height. He kept his face down. He went in through the alley door near the bakery, not the front. He had a bag like a contractor. Emma's stomach dropped. That door sticks, she said. You have to lift it with your shoulder. Noah was quiet for a beat. He knew how. Jackson looked at Cole. Cole was already moving. Noah said, Listen to me. If you go there, do not use the west stairs. The camera outside that stairwell froze twice. I think they wanted that blind spot. Jackson's hand tightened around the phone. You are certain, no. I am concerned. Concern is not certainty. No, Noah said. But it kept me alive 6 years in security, and it is the only reason I am calling a man who clearly hates hearing my voice. Emma almost smiled despite the cold spreading through her. Jackson did not. Send Cole everything. Already did. Emma looked at the phone. Thank you, Noah. Another pause. Just come back breathing. The line went dead. Jackson stared at the phone for 1 second, then placed it on the table. Emma watched him. He helped. I heard. That was difficult for you. Do not enjoy it. I am trying not to. Cole closed his laptop. Car is ready. The ride to Mid-City felt shorter than it should have. Emma sat between Jackson and the window watching the city slide past in damp morning colors. New Orleans looked painfully ordinary. A man in a Saints hoodie carried coffee through the rain. A woman shook water from a red umbrella outside a pharmacy. A cyclist cursed at a puddle after a truck rolled through it too fast. How could the world keep moving when her life had shifted so violently? Jackson's hand rested on his knee close enough that she could take it if she wanted. She did not. He did not force the distance closed. That meant something too. When they reached the block behind Sweet May's, the lead car pulled in first. Cole stepped out before anyone opened Emma's door. He scanned the alley, then the fire escape, then the rear entrance beneath the bakery awning. The bakery windows were dark. Emma frowned. She should be open. Jackson looked at her. You are sure Sweet May opens at 6? Rain Holiday's bad knees she opens at 6. Cole spoke into his earpiece. Jackson moved closer to Emma. Stay behind me. She wanted to argue, but the dark bakery windows held her tongue. They entered through the back. The smell hit her first. Not cinnamon, not butter, not sugar. Bleach. Too much of it. Emma stopped. Jackson noticed. What she never cleans with bleach in the morning. It ruins the smell for customers. Cole drew his gun. Emma's pulse kicked hard. They moved through the rear hallway toward the stairs that led to the apartments above. The maintenance sign Noah mentioned stood near the west stairwell. Out of service. Emma stared at it. That is new. Jackson touched the sign with 2 fingers, then looked at the tape. Cole said fresh. A sound came from above them. Soft. 1 floorboard. Then silence. Jackson moved Emma behind him. She hated how natural it felt to let him. They climbed the east stairs. Her apartment door was closed. Nothing looked broken. The little brass number 3B sat crooked as always. The hallway smelled faintly of old paint and rainwater. Emma reached for her keys. Jackson stopped her with 1 look. Cole opened the door instead. The apartment waited in dim gray light. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The thrift store table, the blue mug in the sink, the basil plant on the kitchen window, its leaves turned toward the glass, the blanket folded over the back of the chair. Her life small and ordinary and hers. Then Emma saw the kitchen drawer. It stood open. She had closed it yesterday. Her heart began to pound. Jackson saw her face and stepped in front of her, but Emma moved around him. My cash is in there. Emma. She crossed to the drawer and looked inside. The envelope was gone. So was the locket. Her mother's locket. For a moment the room blurred. Not because of the money. The money mattered, but the locket was a small gold oval with a dent near the clasp and a picture of Emma as a child tucked inside. Her mother had given it to her when she moved to New Orleans, pretending it was not sentimental by saying it was too scratched to sell. Emma touched the empty drawer. Something hard replaced the fear. They were here. Jackson's voice was low behind her. We leave now. A scrape sounded from the bedroom. Cole turned. The window burst inward. Glass sprayed across the floor. A man in a dark jacket came through from the fire escape, 1 arm raised against the shards. Cole fired, but the man dropped behind the bed. Another crash came from the hallway. Then the lights went out. The apartment plunged into gray shadow. Jackson grabbed Emma's wrist. "Move!" A man appeared in the doorway. Jackson drove him back with 2 fast shots. Cole went into the bedroom after the first attacker. The room filled with noise, splintered wood, shouting feet pounding on old floorboards. Emma ran for the bathroom because it had a narrow window onto the side ledge. She knew it. She had complained to the landlord for months that it did not lock properly. Now the broken lock might save her. A hand caught her sweater from behind. She twisted, slipped halfway free, and slammed her elbow back. The man cursed. His fingers closed around her hair. Pain burst across her scalp. Emma reached blindly for the sink and found the ceramic soap dish. She swung it with everything in her. It cracked against his temple. He staggered. She ran. Emma Jackson shouted. "I know the building," she yelled back. She locked herself in the bathroom, dragged the laundry hamper against the door, and shoved the window open. Rain blew in cold against her face. The side ledge was barely wide enough for 1 foot, but it ran toward the old service stair. Behind her, the bathroom door shook under a heavy kick. Emma climbed out. Her boots slipped on wet metal. She gripped the brick with both hands and forced herself not to look down. The alley below seemed too far dark with puddles and oil slicks. Her breath came in sharp bursts. The bathroom door cracked behind her. She moved. 1 step, then another. The service stair was 5 feet away. The door behind her broke open. A man leaned out the window. "There she is." Emma reached the stair and climbed down fast, one hand skidding along rusted railing. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. Jackson had one unread message from her before she even knew what she was typing. "Bakery closed. West stairs. They came for me alive." She sent it. Then a hand closed around her ankle. Emma fell hard onto the landing. Pain shot through her knee. The man climbed after her, blood running from a cut on his forehead. "You made this harder than it needed to be." Emma kicked him in the face. He grunted but did not let go. She grabbed the rusted railing and pulled herself forward. Her boot slipped free. She stumbled down the last steps and hit the alley running. A black van waited near the mouth of the lane. Its side door opened. Another man stepped out. Emma stopped. For 1 second the alley narrowed around her. Brick walls, rain, dark windows, the van, the man behind her, the man ahead. She was trapped. Then she remembered Sweet May's delivery entrance. Low door, bad lock. 3 steps to the left. Emma lunged for it. The man behind her caught her arm. She drove her heel down onto his instep and slammed her head back into his nose, the way an instructor at a free self-defense class had once taught her. Back then she had laughed nervously and hoped she would never need it. The man screamed. Emma pulled free and threw herself through the bakery door. Inside, the room was dark and empty. No Sweet May, no staff. The display cases were covered. Chairs stacked on tables. A smear of blood marked the tile near the register. Emma's stomach turned. She grabbed the heavy rolling pin from the prep counter. Footsteps entered behind her. She ducked behind a rack of cooling trays. The man moved slowly. "Come out, sweetheart." Emma gripped the rolling pin until her knuckles hurt. The word sweetheart filled her with such clean disgust that her fear sharpened into focus. He passed the rack. Emma swung. The rolling pin hit his knee with a crack. He went down with a shout. She hit him again across the shoulder, then ran for the front door. Locked. Of course it was locked. She fumbled with the latch. Behind her, the man groaned. The front glass shattered inward. Emma screamed and dropped. Jackson came through the broken door with rain behind him and death in his eyes. For half a breath, she thought he was a nightmare. Then he saw her. Everything in his face changed. Emma. The man on the floor reached for a gun. Jackson fired once. The man stopped moving. Emma stared. Jackson crossed the bakery in 3 strides and caught her face in his hands. "Are you hit? No. Are you sure?" "Yes." His eyes moved over her, wild in their control. Hair loose, sweater torn, blood on one sleeve, rain on her face. He looked like the sight of her standing had become the only fact keeping him human. Cole's voice cracked through Jackson's earpiece loud enough for Emma to hear. 2 down upstairs, 1 moving toward the alley. Van is hot. Jackson pulled Emma behind him. We are leaving. They reached the alley door as the van engine roared. A man stood beside it, arm raised. Gun. Jackson shoved Emma behind a stack of crates. The first shot hit brick. The second shattered a window above them. Jackson returned fire. Cole appeared from the stairwell, bleeding from a cut near his eyebrow, and fired toward the van. The attacker ducked, then reached into the open side door and grabbed something. No, not something. Someone. Sweet May. The bakery owner was bound at the wrists tape across her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Emma moved before thinking. Jackson caught her around the waist. No, they have May. I see her. His voice was calm, but his body had gone rigid. The attacker dragged May backward, using her as cover. Keys, he shouted. Car keys and the girl. Emma's blood went cold. The girl. Not Jackson. Not Cole. Her. Jackson's hand tightened on her. The attacker pressed his gun against May's side. Emma could see May shaking. She could also see the van's back tire low on air. The sidewall looked torn, probably from clipping the broken metal near the alley entrance. The engine revved, but the van sat slightly tilted. Emma leaned toward Jackson. The tire. His eyes flicked down. He saw it. Cole did too. Jackson's voice dropped. When I move, you run to Cole. No. Emma. No. The attacker shouted again. I said the girl. Emma stepped out from behind the crates. Jackson swore under his breath. The gun swung toward her. Emma lifted both hands. I'm here. Jackson's face went white with fury. The attacker smiled. Smart girl. Emma took one slow step forward, then another. She looked at May, not the gun. May's eyes were pleading. Emma kept moving. The attacker reached for her. At the last second, Emma threw the rolling pin under the van's front tire and kicked the loose crate beside her as hard as she could. It skidded across the wet ground and slammed into his shin. It was not enough to stop him. It was enough to shift his balance. May dropped. Jackson fired. Cole fired. The attacker fell against the van door. Emma ran to May, pulling the tape from her mouth with shaking hands. May sobbed against her shoulder. Jackson reached them just as another shot came from above. The sound cracked through the alley. Jackson jerked. For one terrible second, he simply stood there looking almost confused. Then blood spread dark across his shirt near his ribs. Emma's world narrowed to a single point. Jackson. He took one step toward her and went down against the brick wall. Cole shouted orders. Men moved. More gunfire sounded somewhere distant, then stopped. Emma crawled to Jackson, pressing both hands against the wound. Blood warmed her palms. No, she said. No, no, no. Jackson looked at her face, pale eyes still clear. You are bleeding, he said. She almost laughed because he was the one with a bullet in him. It is not mine. Good. Do not good me. Stay awake. His mouth moved faintly. Bossy. Alive men can complain. His breathing hitched. Emma pressed harder. Jackson, look at me. His eyes found hers. For once, nothing stood between them. No office glass, no expensive suit of control, no rumor, no fear, no distance he could call protection. Only rain. Blood. Her hands holding him to the world. They came because of me, he said. Stop. Because Rourke knows. I said stop. His hand lifted with effort and closed weakly around her wrist. He knows I love you. Emma froze. Rain ran down his face through his hair along the hard line of his jaw. His blood moved beneath her fingers. The city sounded far away. Jackson's voice was rough. I loved you before I let myself know it. Something broke open in her chest. Not gently. She bent closer, tears mixing with rain. "You do not get to say that and die in an alley behind a bakery." His eyes stayed on her. "I am not planning to die." "Good. Because I will be furious." A faint breath left him. It might have been a laugh. Cole dropped beside them, pressing a medical pack into Emma's hands. "Keep pressure here." "I am." "Harder." Jackson's eyes sharpened for a moment. "Do not talk to her like that." Cole stared at him. "You are bleeding out and still difficult." Emma let out a broken sound that was almost a sob. Sirens wailed in the distance, though Emma did not know who had called them, or whether they were real police or Jackson's people wearing another kind of badge. As Cole worked, Emma looked toward the fallen attacker near the van. His sleeve had ridden up. On his wrist was a tattoo, a broken crown above 3 waves. Emma stared. She had seen that mark before. Not on the street, not on Rourke's name. On a document in Jackson's office. A shell company attached to the federal port security bid. Crown Water Logistics. 3 blue waves under a gold crown. Her breath caught. Cole. He did not look up. Not now. "Cole." Something in her voice made him turn. She pointed. "The tattoo. I saw it in the contract packet. Crown Water. It was in legal's review notes." Cole went still. Jackson's eyes opened wider despite the pain. Emma looked down at him. This was not only Rourke. Jackson's face hardened through the blood loss. Inside, help. Cole's expression turned murderous. Emma pressed both hands against Jackson's wound and leaned close. "You hear me? You do not get to disappear now. We are not finished." Jackson looked at her as if the whole wet alley had vanished around them. "No," he whispered. His fingers tightened around her wrist. "We are not." Jackson did not let go of Emma's wrist until the doctors made him. Even then, his fingers fought the separation. The private medical room inside his Garden District house smelled of antiseptic rain, damp wool, and strong coffee no one had touched. Lamps burned low along the walls. Outside the tall windows, the garden moved in the wind, oak branches scraping softly against the glass like fingernails trying to get in. Emma sat in a chair beside the bed, both hands wrapped around a mug Ruth had placed there an hour ago. The tea had gone cold. She had not taken a sip. Jackson lay shirtless beneath white sheets, a thick bandage wrapped tight around his ribs. His face was pale, but his eyes were open, fixed on her with the stubborn focus of a man who considered unconsciousness an insult. "You should sleep," he said. Emma stared at him. "You were shot." "I noticed. You do not get to give instructions from a bed you were bleeding into 20 minutes ago." His mouth moved faintly. "There she is." The softness in his voice almost broke her. She looked down at her hands. Even after washing them twice, she could still see blood beneath her nails. His blood. The alley came back in pieces. Rain. Broken glass. May crying. The tattoo on the attacker's wrist. Jackson falling against the brick wall like the world had forgotten how to hold him upright. She pressed her hands together until they stopped shaking. Cole entered without knocking. His jacket was gone. His sleeves rolled a bandage crossing one eyebrow. He carried a folder in one hand and a phone in the other. His eyes went first to Jackson, then to Emma. "Crown Water Logistics is real on paper," he said. "Fake in every way that matters." Jackson tried to sit up. Emma stood before Cole could move. "Do not." Jackson looked at her. She pointed at the pillow. "Back." For 1 second, the most feared man in New Orleans looked as if he might argue. Then he settled back. Cole blinked once. "I may start bringing you to meetings." Emma ignored him. "What did you find?" Cole placed the folder on the small table near the bed. Crown Water was attached to the federal port security bid as a subcontractor. Small role. Camera maintenance badge systems, elevator access upgrades. Legal flagged them 3 weeks ago, then cleared them 2 days later. Jackson's eyes sharpened. Who cleared them? Cole looked at Emma. Martin Kells. The name landed with weight. Emma knew him. Everyone on the executive floor knew Martin Kells. Senior legal advisor, silver hair, expensive watches, dry smile. The kind of man who treated assistants like office equipment but stood when board members entered the room. Emma reached for the folder and opened it. Jackson watched her hands move through the pages. There, she said. She tapped a line in the review notes. Kells requested personnel access for operations support. That included executive floor schedules, assistant assignments, and emergency contact files. Cole stepped closer. Emma turned the page. He did not need that for a vendor review. No, Cole said. He did not. Jackson's voice was quiet. He sold her. The words filled the room with ice. Emma kept her eyes on the paper. If she looked at Jackson, she might see the violence gathering there, and part of her was still angry enough, scared enough to understand it. Kells knew my desk moved, she said. He knew people were talking. He knew if Rourke sent the photograph, you would react. Jackson's gaze burned across the room. He gave Rourke her address. Cole nodded. Looks that way. Emma closed the folder slowly. No, she said. Both men looked at her. She stood the folder in her hand. Not looks that way. We prove it. We do not guess. We do not only punish. We prove it so Rourke cannot twist this into some private fight over me. Jackson's face changed at that. Not anger. Recognition. Emma felt it and kept going because if she stopped now, fear would catch up. Rourke wanted you emotional. He wanted you reckless. He wanted everyone to see that I make you careless. Jackson's jaw tightened. He was right. No, Emma said. He was wrong. Silence. Her voice steadied. I made you human. That is not the same thing. Cole looked away toward the window, giving them a moment without leaving the room. Jackson's eyes stayed on Emma. She saw the pain in him not only from the bullet. The deeper wound was older. A boy raised by a father who turned affection into arithmetic. A man who believed anything loved became a target. A king of docks and contracts and quiet wars lying in bed because he had stepped between her and a bullet without hesitation. Emma moved closer. If you love me, she said, you cannot keep trying to erase me from danger by erasing me from the room. His face hardened. That is not what I am doing. It is exactly what you are doing. His eyes flashed. I almost lost you. And I almost lost you. The words broke through his anger. Emma's throat tightened, but she did not look away. You wanted to send me away before we even knew who helped Rourke. I saw it on your face. Jackson said nothing. That is not protection. That is panic wearing a suit. Cole made a quiet sound that might have been a cough. Jackson ignored him. Emma set the folder on the bed near Jackson's hand. I am scared. I am more scared than I know how to say. But I will not become another thing men move around while they decide who gets to own the river. Jackson looked at the folder, then at her. What do you want? She exhaled once. The answer surprised her with how clear it felt. I want to stand beside you when this ends. His expression closed. No. Emma laughed softly, not because anything was funny. There it is. Emma. No. Listen to me. You told a room full of people to leave files with me. You said I had authority. You said I mattered. Now prove that meant more than keeping me close enough to watch. Jackson's voice dropped. Beside me is dangerous. So is loving you. The words quieted the room. Outside, rain began again, light against the glass. Jackson closed his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, something in him had shifted. Not surrender. Jackson Vale did not surrender. but he was learning that not every battle was won by holding tighter. "What did you see?" he asked. Emma understood. He was asking about the evidence, about the mark, about the pattern. He was asking her to step in. She picked up the folder again and spread the papers across the blanket near his knees. Kells cleared Crown Water. Crown Water handled badge access. The attacker had the same broken crown tattoo. Noah saw someone near the camera room, and that person knew the bakery alley door sticks. Rourke's men needed building access, but they also needed my schedule. Kells gave them both. Cole nodded slowly. And the phrase Emma said. Jackson looked at her. "Choose faster." It was not just about me. It was about the port contract. Rourke needed you to surrender the security bid before the final review. Cole's face went still. "The review board meets tomorrow night." Jackson's eyes darkened, where Cole answered. "Riverboat private dining room, docked near the old Bienville Pier. Half the port families will be there. Kells, too." Emma looked at Jackson. "Then that is where we ended." Jackson stared at her for a long moment. "No weapons in her hands," he said to Cole. Emma's brows rose. "Excuse me." Jackson looked at her. "You can stand beside me. You do not carry." Emma considered arguing, then saw the strain at the corners of his mouth and the blood already spotting the edge of his bandage. "Fine." Cole looked almost relieved. Progress. The next night, New Orleans seemed to hold its breath. Fog curled over the Mississippi, turning the riverboat into a shape from another century. Its white railings glowed under strings of warm lights. Music drifted faintly from the lower deck, a trumpet slow and mournful, beautiful enough to hide the ugly business waiting upstairs. Emma stood in the private cabin as Ruth adjusted the sleeve of her black dress. It was simple, elegant, and nothing like armor, though Emma felt armored in it anyway. Ruth stepped back. "You look like yourself," she said. Emma met her eyes in the mirror. "Is that good?" "It is better than looking like what they expect." Downstairs, Jackson waited near the gangway in a black suit, one hand resting carefully against his side. He was pale beneath the golden dock lights, but his posture gave nothing away. Cole stood beside him. Two men lingered behind them, quiet and broad and watching every shadow. Jackson looked up when Emma appeared. For a moment, the river, the danger, the men, the city all fell away. His eyes moved over her face. Not checking, seeing. "You should be in bed," she said when she reached him. "So should you." "I was not shot. You were hunted." The words slipped cold between them. Emma took his hand before fear could steal the moment. "Then let them see I am still here." Jackson's fingers closed around hers. Together they walked onto the riverboat. The private room upstairs was filled with men who wore power differently. Some wore it in tailored suits, some in thick gold rings, some in silence. A few women sat among them, sharp-eyed and still their faces unreadable as cards held close to the chest. At the far end of the room, Silas Rourke smiled. He was lean, gray-haired, and elegant in a pale suit that made him look almost gentle until his eyes settled on Emma. They were flat and pleased, as if he had expected her to be hidden somewhere shaking. Martin Kells stood near the bar with a glass in hand. The moment he saw Emma, his mouth twitched. Not guilt. Annoyance. That was enough to steady her. Rourke lifted his glass. "Vale, I heard you had a rough night." Jackson's expression did not change. "You heard late?" A few men shifted. Someone smiled without showing teeth. Rourke's gaze moved to Emma. "And you brought company." Jackson's hand tightened once around hers. Emma squeezed back before he could speak. She stepped forward. "Emma Carter," she said. Rourke's smile deepened. "Yes, we know." "No," Emma said. "You knew my address. That is not the same thing." The room stilled. Kells looked down into his drink. Jackson stood beside her, silent. That silence gave her more strength than any claim he could have made. Emma placed a folder on the long table. The cloned badge used at my building was tied to Crownwater Logistics. Crownwater was cleared through Vale Harbor Legal after being flagged. The man who attacked me wore the same mark connected to that shell vendor. My personnel file was accessed without cause. My schedule was copied. My address was pulled. She looked at Kells. By Martin Kells. Kells laughed once. It was a bad laugh. Too thin. This is absurd. She is an assistant trying to interpret documents she does not understand. Emma opened the folder and slid the top page across the table. Then explain your access code. No one spoke. Cole moved to the door. Kells stared at the paper. The color began to leave his face. Rourke's smile faded. Jackson finally spoke. You used my legal advisor to reach into my house. Rourke's eyes flashed. Your house. Emma felt Jackson's attention on her. He did not answer right away. Then he said, My life. The words were quiet. They did not need volume. Rourke leaned back. Careful, Vale. A woman can make a man sentimental. Emma looked at him. And a careless enemy can make a room remember its rules. That turned several faces toward her. She continued before fear caught her voice. You did not only threaten me, you exposed every man at this table by bringing a dirty vendor into a federal security bid. You wanted leverage over Jackson, but you created evidence that touches all of you. An older woman near the window smiled faintly. Rourke saw the room changing. So did Kells. Kells set down his glass. I was pressured. Cole was already behind him. Jackson's voice was low. By whom? Kells looked at Rourke. That was all the answer anyone needed. Rourke stood. This is theater. Jackson stepped forward. Pain flickered once across his face, but he buried it before anyone else could use it. No, he said. This is consequence. Rourke's eyes moved to Emma again. You think standing next to him makes you safe? Emma felt Jackson go still beside her. This time she did not let him answer. No, she said. It makes me seen. The room held the words. Emma turned to Jackson. His eyes were on her, and in them she saw pride, fear-love, and the struggle not to turn all of it into control. He faced the room. Emma Carter stands with me by her own choice. Any move against her is a move against me. A pause. Then he added, voice colder. And unlike Rourke, I do not miss twice. No one laughed. No one needed to. Cole took Kells out first. Rourke was escorted through the opposite door by two men who had entered the room loyal to him and left it loyal to survival. The riverboat horn sounded low over the water, deep and mournful, swallowing whatever happened beyond the closed doors. Emma stood very still. Jackson touched her hand. You are shaking. So are you. I was shot. I was brave. His mouth curved despite the pain. Yes, he said. You were. 3 weeks later, Emma returned to Vale Harbor Group. The executive floor looked the same at first. Glass, marble, brass, quiet fear dressed as professionalism. But Emma was not the same woman who had once sat outside Jackson's office hoping for a glance. Her new office stood across from his, not inside it, not hidden behind him, not placed like a decoration within reach. Her name was on the glass. Emma Carter, Director of Executive Operations. Tessa stood in the doorway with 2 coffees and wet eyes she pretended were allergies. You have a door, Tessa said. Emma smiled. I know. Do not become insufferable. I make no promises. Near the lobby that evening, Noah found her by the security desk. He looked tired but lighter somehow. Director Carter, he said. Emma laughed softly. Please do not. He smiled. Had to try it once. For a moment they stood together in the hum of the building. Then Noah said, "I am glad you are okay. Because of you, partly." He looked down. "Because of you, mostly." The gentleness of it made her chest ache. "You saw me before anyone else did," Emma said. Noah nodded, accepting the goodbye inside the gratitude. "Yeah," he said. "But he was the one you were waiting for." Emma did not deny it. Upstairs, Jackson waited on the rooftop terrace as the sun slipped low over New Orleans. The city glowed gold and violet. The river moved dark beneath the bridges, carrying music secrets and all the things people believed could be buried. Emma stepped beside him. He turned before she spoke. "You always know when I enter a room," she said. "Yes." How Jackson looked at the city. For a year I taught myself not to look. I still listened. The confession moved quietly through her. She leaned against the railing. "Do you regret it? Seeing you?" She nodded. Jackson turned to her fully. "Every dangerous thing in my life began because I wanted something too much." Emma held his gaze. "And me?" His hand lifted to her face, slow enough for choice, gentle enough for trust. "You are the only dangerous thing I would choose again." A smile touched her mouth. "And if another man makes me laugh," his eyes warmed, "then I learn to be funnier." Emma laughed. This time Jackson did not stiffen. He did not reach for control. He simply watched her, letting the sound exist in the open air between them. The woman he had refused to notice stood beside him above the city, not hidden, not claimed like property, chosen and choosing. Jackson brushed his thumb along her jaw. "For a year I walked past you like you were invisible." Emma covered his hand with hers. "I am not invisible anymore." "No," he said softly. "You are the first thing I see." Below them, New Orleans kept shining dangerous and alive while the river carried the night forward. This is not just a story about obsession. It is about being seen after surviving years of invisibility. Watch until the end, like the video, and comment where you're watching from.